Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turf's Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone show this evening. Well, welcome to the Water Show, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and we cover all time zones, so I hope everybody's having a great time. I'm your host, Rob Starr, with our other great host, Miss Tara Mullally. And Tara, how are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well, and I'm excited to talk with Chris today. There's so much kind of going on in the world of water.
And you were on fire last week.
Well, I hope the rains have come to sort of cool me down. So I'm really excited. Right now, it's raining right where we are. So I'm really excited to talk about the atmospheric rivers that have been happening and all of that craziness.
Yes, and we have the wonderful Miss Chris Austin, the purveyor of Maven's Notebook. How are you doing? Are you avoiding rain, or are you getting lots of it as well?
We got some rain up here, but I don't think we got it like Southern California got it. They were breaking records down there, and all sorts of mayhem. Of course, whenever, liquid precipitation drops from the sky, people in Los Angeles, forget how to drive. So,
yeah. We had that on the freeway. The big 18-wheelers were splashing so much water with the rain, you couldn't see 4 feet out your window in the car. It was that bad. It was scary. Really scary.
And these downpours that come are so strong. I mean, so much stronger these days than they used to be. So it's very dangerous to be on the road sometimes when that happens.
Yeah, but Tara, did you have lots of rain? I know you had a lot of waterfalls behind you, so I guess that filled that up a little bit. But how did it go up in your area?
We actually had 7 feet of rain in Lake Piru over the weekend. It was a crazy, great for the reservoir. We're really excited. We're actually opening it back up for boating, which we had that conservation release. So we were no boats, and now the rain. So we kind of look like we know a little bit about what we're doing with the water management piece, which makes me really happy.
Good deal. So, Chris, tell us about how's the reservoirs look now with this last downpour?
Up north, they're not doing badly. I believe they're a bit above the historical average. Of course, this is the time of year when we have to be releasing water from the reservoirs to make sure that we have room for incoming flood water should another storm arrive. But they've been managing those reservoirs, and we still have, a little bit more than we usually have, so that's the good thing. And we have a couple reservoirs now that are utilizing what's called forecast-informed reservoir operations, meaning that now they're watching the forecast, and if they see a storm coming in, then they can kind of judge if they need to release water and how much. But if they don't see a storm coming in, then they can hang on to the water. And this can generate, tens of thousands of acre feet of potentially of water over the period of the wet season, and do so using only existing infrastructure and no additional costs. So it's a great idea, and they're implementing it in the Russian River, and I think they're also doing so down in Orange County, and they are studying other reservoirs and working on getting that implemented in other places as well. So that's a little bit of exciting technology that's sort of come on the scene and become usable just in the past few years. And, that's thanks to the increased forecasting skills that we have now for these atmospheric rivers. And they have a network now of sensors up and down the coast that can keep an eye on conditions. They have the hurricane hunters who are out flying into atmospheric river storms in the off-season from the hurricanes. So there's just a lot of really groundbreaking technology working that goes into this to understand those atmospheric river storms, how big they are, how strong they're going to be, and where they're going to hit. And we've come really quite far in the past few years.
Well, they said the next storm, which should be hitting you today, I would guess, or tomorrow, is going to go all the way up to Frisco and then hit Southern California. And they said that's going to be a big one, a wetter one than the one we just had.
Well, up here we had one blow through this morning. It was rather wet, and I think we are. Actually, I looked at my weather app, and it says rain is starting in 3.5 hours. So, but the sky up here is blue. You know, it's swirling around. It travels, that moisture.
Kara?
So one of the things that I had a real question on was the Delta, and I know I'm going to put Chris on the spot because I always do that, I feel like. But the Delta Protection Commission appealing the certification of the Delta Tunnel. I know everybody is like kind of reeling from that moment. So let's talk about that for a little bit, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and how we could possibly move forward.
Yeah, well, the Delta Protection Commission did file an appeal, but that's also along with 9 other appeals that were filed, which is not a surprise to anybody who follows this contentious project. The Delta Tunnel Project, they're now called Delta Conveyance Project, formerly Water Fix.
California Water, yep.
And even before that, it was the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, way back in the beginning. But yeah, so it's, they're really trying to work on getting the permits through on this project. And the big hang-up is at the State Water Board, excuse me, and they have some problems there. That's going to be the bigger thing. But in the meantime now, we have this appeal of this consistency determination. Well, what the heck is that? Okay, so in California, we have an agency that's set up to manage the Delta. It's called the Delta Stewardship Council, and they put up a management plan for the Delta called the Delta Plan. And in this Delta Plan, they have a whole bunch of recommendations where they kind of say to agencies and other people, we really think you should do this, but they can do that or not. That's up to them in the long run. And then they have about 15 regulatory policies, which are things that you have to do. They're not a recommendation. You shall do these things. So these policies cover all sorts of things, where you put floodplain restoration, how you engage the community, a number of things. There's, I think, like 14 to 17 policies that they have. So anybody that's going to do a project in the Delta has to rank their project against these regulations, and they have to be consistent with the regulations. Now, the project proponents are the ones, this is the way the legislature set it up, the project proponents are the ones that determine if it's consistent or not. And they have to file this report, say why they think they're consistent, and provide evidence in what's called the administrative record that it's consistent. And the covered action, the action must be consistent with all the Delta Plan policies. Now, anyone can appeal that consistency determination, anyone, including the Delta Protection Commission that chose to do so. So we had 10 organizations file appeals for this consistency determination. The tough part, excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. The tough part, I guess, if you are really wanting to stop the tunnels, is that the appeal here is very narrow, and the Delta Stewardship Council can't stop the project. They can, if they uphold the appeal, then it's remanded back to the agency, and they have to fix whatever it is that's wrong. So, but it can't just stop the project. And if you file an appeal, your appeal has to tie directly to these regulations. You can't just say, I'm appealing this project because I don't like it. So it's a very narrow appeal window that you can appeal things on. And it's there's been a number of these covered actions that have gone through this process at the Delta Stewardship Council, and sometimes they've upheld the appeals. And when the California Water Fix went for its consistency determination, by all appearances and statements, they were going to uphold the appeal, and so the Department of Water Resources rescinded their consistency determination, and then shortly after that, the project kind of came to a halt, and then Gavin Newsom came in, and it became something different. But so it's not a slam dunk that that this is going to stop the project.
But would it stall the project, costing more money? Because that's what when I read this, I feel like I just hear dollars. Like I hear taxpayer dollars, just like paying for more legal fees, stalling the project, increasing construction costs. Like I hear it goes cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching over and over again.
Well, yeah, but I'll tell you this. I think the bigger stalling thing is going to be what's going on at the State Water Board. So, we'll see how that ties in. And there are folks, I'm sure, in these appeals. I'm going to dig in to look at what these appeals are over the weekend. I'm sure some of them are saying that you can't say anything about the operations of this project before the processes are finished at the State Water Board for the Bay Delta Plan, which sets the, flows through the Delta, and this problem that they have trying to get their permit approved. They have a lot of some very sticky water rights situation going on there that really takes the legislature is going to have to fix it, because otherwise, if they go through the long and laborious process to cure the problems with the water rights, there's no guarantee that would come out successful, and that would also take probably like 5 to 10 years. Also the issue with the bonds.
Dang rights. It always comes back to those dang rights, man.
Yeah, well, that's where the State Water Board kind of comes in. You have to be, and this is the Delta Stewardship Council for this particular appeals process, but the real hang-up, the sticky thing, is at the State Water Board. So we'll see how that gets resolved. In the meantime, we have this little fun diversion with this consistency determination. So
they'll keep it busy.
And it floats on, it keeps floating on by, never changes. It takes forever.
Exactly.
So what about, I've been reading something that's important to me, is this PFAS pesticides.
Oh, yes. Gosh.
They put down 15 million pounds of these things from 2018 to 23.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Pesticides with PFAS in them. PFAS is in so many products and so many places, and it's all over the place. And pesticides is, this is not necessarily new information. I've seen stories that PFAS is in, pesticides already, but this is just putting some numbers to it. Yeah, 15 million pounds from 28 to 2023. This is, PFAS is really a problem because it's just ubiquitous in the environment. I mean, it's just everywhere.
Is now joining.
It's even in the ocean. They've done studies that, when the waves crash, they're aerosoling PFAS onto the coast. I mean, this stuff is everywhere. So this is just, more unfun news,
An
And
unknown participant is now joining.
and they're finding that this PFAS can accumulate in the fruits and the vegetables and animal feed and all that stuff. Plus, it sinks into the groundwater. Travels in the air.
I read the other day that you can find PFAS in the carpets.
Oh yes, yeah. Think anything with water repellent is a PFAS pretty much.
Food wrappers.
So
that's another fun PFAS moment. Pizza boxes, anything that just is trying to repel that water. We were like, oh, look at this amazing thing. It repels water. And then we're like, but it also causes cancer. Awkward.
And clothes.
Yeah,
it's like everywhere.
Yeah, your sofa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do you think that's going to last in the future? I mean, it's getting worse every day.
There's a lot of remediation. So in a lot of water treatment, they've got the anion exchange, which really works. They've got a lot of different ways to treat water so that it's pulled out of the water. One of the biggest issues, though, is what to do with it kind of after it's bonded to the other items. So when you're doing the anion exchange, it bonds the two chemicals together. So you've got these little pellets that are left over full of PFAS. And so figuring out what to do with that once you've kind of cleaned the water is another thing that we're trying to deal with and figure out at this point in time. But there is definitely ways that people are treating PFAS in their drinking water sources so that we're not drinking it, but then we're interacting with it in every other way. And so that's a great question on how do we deal with it kind of overall. And then there's also I love that the case where 3M had to pay. So that's great for the kind of the water districts in California. I know a lot of water districts were in that case. So they got some money back, but how much, and is it really going to cover everything? And it's probably going to end up, as always, being back on the ratepayer, which is unfortunate and really frustrating as a ratepayer.
Well,
yeah. And the hard part is that they try and phase out PFAS in products, and there is no easy substitute for it, unfortunately. So it's very unsure how we can stop using it and making more of it, and we haven't come to that that piece of knowledge yet. I guess we don't know what to replace it with.
Well,
kind of like microplastics.
Well, yeah, the worst part of that is how much you can accumulate in your own body.
Oh yeah, plastics is.
Yes. Well, they're still having plastic bottles made.
Yep.
That hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
I've been trying, like I've said before, I've been trying for 8 years now to get people from the bottling industry, plastic bottle, and not to bag on them or anything, but just get their perspective on it. How do they see it? What do they see as a possible solution down the road? Is it as bad as they say it is? But they don't even return a phone call. So I guess they don't want to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's difficult.
No, but I think when you don't say anything, then you get more suspicious, and things go on about that. I just think people should be more transparent.
Well, and I think too, there's an element of the people can pitch in here too. It's like unfortunately, there is a need sometimes for bottled water. Sometimes you're in a place and, the only answer is bottled water. Or sometimes if I'm hot and I'm out driving down the road, I don't want a soda, I want a water, so I go into 7-Eleven, I buy a water. I think, there are times when it's appropriate. I think people that live with bottled water all the time can re-examine their use of that. That used to be me, and then I got very concerned about the plastic bottle waste, so I bought refillable bottles. And my kids learned as they were going to sports practice, first thing you do is fill yourself up a bottle of water. And they learned to carry refillable bottles so that we didn't contribute to the problem. And when you plan, you can do things like that.
What do you think of the water that you get in little boxes? I see at different events.
That's another way. I mean, I'm sure it has its impact as well. But sometimes you do need water in a portable and disposable container. Sometimes it's kind of appropriate. It's I think where people can really pitch in is not to make it something they do every day. And I think you see a lot of people carrying these refillable bottles, like these double steel-walled cups. They're actually great. You put ice in them, and you can have ice water all day long. That's very cool. You can't do that with bottled water,
No, you can't do that. And I should put hot chocolate some in the wintertime. It stays hot all day.
Yeah, that's great.
Good way to do it.
They're very useful. And you see a lot of people out there doing that. So I think people are, and if you reducing our use of bottled water is probably about the best thing we could do on our own.
So what else is the most dangerous thing that happened this week?
I'm thinking about the wildfire situation, because that looks really fascinating with the new Bureau of Reclamation program and like what that looks like. So do you have any insight on that one?
Well, I'm glad, it's always great when people are being proactive for wildfires. And so, they have, they do have this guy here, the story that I printed today. Let me pull it up. But, fuel reduction is really important. And, having someone that pays attention to these things is quite great. Yeah, thinning and removing fire fuels, definitely, that's important work, and we need more of it. We really need to be working on our forests, or even forest management,
even backyard slopes.
Well, wildfires are such a major thing in California. It's fascinating to see somebody do that, and then also like the prediction of the wildfires and how they're developing all these new tools with the next mega burn, which is super interesting in terms of like kind of tying those two things together. So there's like, we love that we have foresters that take care of that. That's really important part of forest health. And so seeing that we're actually taking it seriously, I feel like and not that we haven't in the past, I feel like we have always taken wildfires very seriously, but continuing to ramp up that attention as the climate shifts and as things are changing. We're in a different cycle, so happy to see the rain, but knowing that the drought could come back at any time, and then dry areas, and then that's wildfire season.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sorry. UC San Diego has cameras now that are watching, a whole network of cameras watching for fires and using AI to, identify fires, fast. And then we have the Helitat crew that goes out and tries to, where they actually, when a fire starts, they load up their crew on the helicopter and they parachute down and they fight the fire right there, right at the very beginning when it gets, before it can really get going. So there's, quite a bit of really amazing firefighting things going on here.
There's a fire museum here called the House of Flame out in Phoenix, and they have things from the Hellcats and stories about it. It's pretty interesting. I think they also should include bringing more goats in.
Yeah.
I think goats are... Yeah, no, it's funny, but also I know they just eat everything, and, llamas are actually really good for that, too. In fact, Chino Basin Watermaster has Water Conservation District, I'm sorry, Liz. But Chino Basin Water Conservation District actually has a llama on that, like practically on staff. His name's Basil, and he's there to like keep things going, keep things short and sweet.
Well, like they say, having goats is not a bad idea. So anyway.
Although that was a bad joke.
Yes, it was. I should listen to my wife. Don't be a comedian. She's absolutely right. Anyway.
You're the goat.
I'm the goat, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Chris, we have to go over to our commercials, but I want to thank you for always joining us every single week. And for our listeners, please, I beg you, I even order you to go to mavensnotebook.com and be a subscriber. It's great information every day about what's happening in water. Behind the scenes, she gets info. She must. Yeah, I don't think you bribe them with money, but you got something you bribe them with. These people that tell you, they give you the inside scoop, and that's a good thing. Anyway, you can become a subscriber, or you can also be a sponsor. That would be a nice little gift and a special thing to her. But she does good work, and she works, God knows, 100 hours a week and gets these publications out every single morning on my laptop and everybody else's stuff. So it's a great way to go. It's mavensnotebook.com. And, Chris, you have hopefully a dry weekend.
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yep. Same to you. All right, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be back with some special guests, so stick around. It's going to be a pretty interesting conversation.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
One of the most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your Site One seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their Site One branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com or by downloading the Site One app.
Are you presently part of the irrigation industry as a worker or business owner? Do you want to learn how you and your staff can boost your knowledge and productivity? Then you should check out Irrigator Technical Training School. Irrigator Tech is the leading source of quality instruction serving all facets of the irrigation industry. Their courses provide a basic, easy-to-understand approach that raises the skill level, competency, and professionalism of landscape and irrigation personnel through practical education and services. Irrigator Tech combines classroom and real-life hands-on training, leading to a well-recognized certification that both customers and employers demand. Irrigator Tech's specialized courses can help you quickly become a certified irrigation auditor or a certified installer, repair, maintenance, or backflow technician. Courses also include certificates in smart water application or becoming a certified tree worker. Most importantly, all certifications are state recognized, and Irrigator Tech offers annual renewal classes to help keep your certification up to date. So whether you work in California, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, or Arizona, there's an Irrigator Tech class near you. For more information on how to jumpstart your career, call Irrigator Tech toll-free 866-614-1755 or visit them on the web at irrigatortech.com. That's toll-free 866-614-1755 and on the web at irrigatortech.com.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Thanks for staying with us, and we appreciate it. We have some great guests to bring on, and I'll introduce them to you. First, we have a gentleman named Larry Matson, and he is Director of the Office of Columbia River within the Washington State Department of Ecology. And a little background, while attending graduate school at Central Washington University, Larry's interest in public service began as a planning commissioner for the city of Ellensburg. His career began as a land use planner, helping Yakima County draft its first comprehensive plan to implement the newly adopted Growth Management Act. Larry was elected to the Yakima City Council in 1999, serving one term from 2001 to 2014. He worked on environmental documentation, permitting, mitigation for the Washington State Department of Transportation. And I'd like to welcome him and also Scott Revel. And he's been the manager of the 72,000-acre Rosa Irrigation District in the Yakima Valley since 2013. Prior to that, he was planning manager for the Kennewick Irrigation District for 7 years and served as interim district manager in 2009. He also worked in city and county land use planning from 1991 to 2007 and served as the planning director of Hood River County and Walla Walla County. He holds a master's and bachelor's degrees from Washington State University in public administration and history. So we'd love to welcome to the show Larry and Scott. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Thank
Can
you.
Hear me okay?
You guys doing well?
Man.
Is it raining
Yes,
up
hey.
by you guys? Is it raining by you?
It's cloudy.
Not right
No
now,
rain.
but it's been raining more than it has.
I
That's
can read.
exciting.
Hopefully it's good.
So, yeah, I know.
Good,
It always
good.
rains in Washington. It always rains in Washington, except when it doesn't, right? Like, that's what we hear down in Southern California. We're like, it's always raining in Washington. And then I'm like, oh, but wait, it's not. It's not raining in Washington. So let's talk about what the current drought conditions and current water supply levels are, especially in the Yakima Basin.
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point, and that is the Cascade Crest, right? And so the Seattle, the urban area on the west side of the state gets a lot more precipitation than we do east of the Cascades. And Scott and I are based in the Yakima Basin, which is about a 2-hour drive east of Seattle. And so, yeah, to answer your question, we're in the third consecutive year of drought, I should say, within the Yakima Basin. Statewide, I think it's at least the second year, and well, for a significant number of the counties, I should say, within the state. And then, looking ahead, we're looking at a potential fourth year unless the precipitation and snowpack changes dramatically over the next 3 to 4 months.
One thing I didn't mention, but just for people understand where you both are from, but you're also representatives from the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan, so that's how you guys work together. So that's pretty interesting. How will the drought affect many senior water rights holders in the state?
Well,
typically
that's
it
our
affects.
job. Oh, go ahead,
Do you want
Scott.
to jump in? Yeah,
Yep,
typically
go
it
ahead.
affects the junior water rights holders first, and so would include my district, and we've got about $1 billion in crop value in a good year. This is not a good year. The economy is in distress in many, many different directions, and in my district, typically you're going to see a lot of grapes, wine grapes, juice grapes, apples, tree fruits, a large dairy industry, and a large slice of the nation's hop crop. And so in a drought year like this, I mean, we're impacted first. The senior districts were also impacted this year in ways that had never happened before, and that's part of because of that background and the fact that we spent 43 years in in court with 6 trips to the Supreme Court to sort out every molecule in the basin. That really is the genesis of the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan, which took a new look forward, where we're trying to not resolve our differences in court and trying to look at multiple elements here. So it's not just water supply, but it's conservation. There's a floodplain element, forest health element, fish passage. There's a groundwater component. Using the infrastructure we have, the plumbing that we have, and using it differently, both to help fish and to help maximize water supply.
One thing I know that you're facing historically low reservoir storage and stream flows. I guess this is the 3rd consecutive year of the drought. And how's that going? Is it not being accepted too popular, or are people accepting and understand what the problems are?
They understand when there's a lack of precipitation. Yeah, they understand. I mean, anyone who drives on Interstate 90 sees that the reservoir that they see from the interstate is very low. There's another one on Highway 12 on White Pass, very, very low. And so we have zero carryover going into next year. Now, the reservoirs are only part of the story, because there's typically more water in the snowpack than all 5 reservoirs combined. So low elevation snow is critical to our water supply.
One thing,
no,
go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, thanks. Just to add, colloquially, one of the things we refer, we have 5 U.S. Bureau of Reclamation reservoirs within the Yakima Basin system, and we often refer to the snowpack as the 6th reservoir. So, like Scott was saying, we really rely on the snow water equivalent, which I know is a bit of a technical term, but that's all this water locked up in the snow that slowly release after a really robust snow year to function as our 6th reservoir in the Yakima system.
Just for our listeners, can one of you explain the size of the Yakima Basin? What that entails, and so people who don't live in Washington can learn a little bit more?
Yeah, it's the largest drainage basin that's entirely in the state, and it's about 200 miles from the top of the basin up on Snoqualmie Pass, just outside of Seattle, up in the mountains down to the mouth where the Yakima River's confluence is with the Columbia River. So it's pretty good sized area. It encompasses nearly 3 counties. And so, to drive end to end is, you're probably looking about 2.5 hour drive to go from one end to the other.
So earlier what I heard was wine and beer is going to be impacted. That really, kind of hurts. I just like emotionally. So I'm wondering, does the state have emergency drought funds available, and can they be utilized? How can they be utilized, very quickly?
Yes, we do. We have. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, my district in the last 2 years, we've leased more water than everybody else in the state combined. So we leased $2 million worth of water this year, about 7,700 acre feet, which kept our system running for an additional about 10 days. And at $300 an acre foot for each day that we add, and that's to run at bare minimum flows, that's $240,000 a day. So it's about $10,000 an hour in leased senior water rights for us to run each hour. And so the state has a program where they typically will reimburse us for about 50% of those costs. And so we're very grateful for that.
Wow, nice state. So kind of along the nice state line, the Office of Columbia River identifies making water available for in-stream benefits when needed most as a core directive. So what has your real-world experience been in balancing that goal with the regulatory requirements and competing demands, like this farming, fish, all of the ecological requirements and human needs placed on those in-stream flows?
Well, that's sort of and I don't want to get too wonky here, but, within the Department of Ecology, there are two programs. And there's one that handles that curtailment and the water rights issues associated with, both the junior and senior water rights that Scott mentioned. And then there's my office, which handles the water development side. And so those two programs within ecology work really closely together. There were some bumps, candidly, this fall as the forecast for, water storage looked more and more dire. And so, we are working with, internally to make sure that in future drought years, especially if there's a fourth year next year, that we communicate much better with the senior irrigators that probably are most impacted. I think, Scott mentioned the junior irrigators, and they tend to know early in the season if they will be affected by low reservoir, low storage. But the surprising element this fall or this summer was the fact that those senior rights were being impacted as well, just because of the drought that we're in.
So speaking of that drought condition, go ahead, Scott. I apologize. I'm really interested.
It's okay. One comparison point I would give is in 2015, so 10 years ago, we went into that season with low precipitation, but we had full reservoirs. We had good carryover, and the reservoirs filled up. What we did not have was much snowpack. And so we were in a deficit condition, basically, for snowpack on average. And so in that year, we got down into the mid 40% range, I think 45, 44%, something like that. And that, in my district alone, that caused over $100 million in crop losses in that drought. And that was through, reduced yields and reduced crop quality. So just having full reservoirs doesn't get you out of the problem. You got to have snow also. Now you can have the reverse also, where you have low reservoirs and then you get a really good snowpack. And depending on where the snow falls, because it's not uniform through the basin, and particularly late snow, particularly in March, and even we'll usually build snow into April often, and that can bail out the water year. The rub is we don't want to count on that every year because it doesn't happen every year.
That's sixth reservoir, right? Really important. So going back to just my question on the drought, so if there is that level of drought, if there is that level of impact, what response efforts are being coordinated with local governments and conservation, and how does that kind of all come together?
Well, the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan, that's the forum. That is the result of the 40 plus years of conflict that Scott mentioned earlier that sort of drove the basin in the 70s and into the early aughts. And so we have this forum, this integrated plan, and cities, counties, irrigation districts, the Yakima Nation, and the Bureau of Reclamation, we all gather at least monthly. And so that's the forum to coordinate, and it's worked really well. I think, you had asked before about drought funding. The state has made $4.5 million available in emergency drought grants for tribes and public agencies. The legislature typically funds about a $3 million a year account just for drought relief. And so I know that the legislature has met in one of their subcommittees to see, sort of look ahead at 2026. But that money, at least hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have $3 million available to help out next drought season, irrigation season.
Drought season, I love it.
Freudian slip.
If your governor came to you, both of you guys, and said, you know what, you're bright and you know what you're doing, but they want to make both of you the czars of water in Washington. You're Washington. What are the top three things that you see needs to be fixed or implemented beyond what you're talking? We're talking future stuff now. When it rains there a lot, I guess, from what I read. But does that all get collected? Does it go somewhere else that we shouldn't put it? And what needs to be fixed? What do you think needs to be fixed to increase water collection?
Three things. I can tell you easily three things: more storage, and more storage. And that's not just for agricultural irrigation supply, but that's also for fish. because fish and wildlife suffer greatly during a drought, particularly when flows are extremely low and the water starts warming. And we have two different endangered species act listed trout in our basin, both bull trout and steelhead. We have been doing water conservation, extremely aggressive conservation in my district for over 40 years. We've put over $55 million worth of our growers' funds into piping over almost 400 miles of canals. We have been doing conservation aggressively under a federal law since 1994, so it's not a new thing. But what we need is new storage, and new storage is not easy to do. It's expensive, and the permitting is very complicated. There are a lot of issues. Most of the good sites were used a long time ago. It's been studied for over 100 years. And if it were easy, it would have been done, by our predecessors. But we haven't had any new water storage reservoirs in this basin since 1933 for irrigation supply.
Mm-hmm. How in the farm you got a very large farming communities up in there. How do they look at building resilience for the future drought conditions? Is there anything directions that they get from you, or do they go through the U.S. government farm service and things like that to kind of know what that is?
Well, they're already doing it, and they've been doing it for decades in order to survive. So your typical rosa grower is going to have a mix of crops. Things like wine grapes are a great crop in our district because they don't use a whole lot of water. And the thing to remember is when you think of Washington and you think of all of those evergreen trees and Mount Rainier, on the west side of the state, they get a lot of rain. Where I live, I'm sitting here in my office out in the desert. We get 6-7 inches a year. And so it's a little bit more than that in the mountains and even less down at the confluence. But in order to grow those kinds of things here, growers have probably about a dozen different strategies. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about very often is the massive on-farm investment that has happened. And just in my district alone, it's hundreds of millions of dollars that farmers have invested in high-efficiency systems, whether it's converting to more efficient sprinklers, converting to drip, microspray, some of the most efficient irrigation in the world. And they always have some fallow ground. They will do rotations. They will they may lease water from a neighbor who's not farming. They may have an emergency groundwater well. They may have a whole even if they're just growing apples, they may have a variety of apples or even fruit trees where they can, say, water the cherries up until harvest and then not water them, move the remaining water to their apples, and maybe just hit the cherries once or twice to keep the trees alive. They may have, a lot of them will keep some land that they can turn fallow once we go off of the spring runoff. So if they've got like a hay field, they may own that. They'll get a cutting or two off of it, and then they'll idle it for the rest of the season, take the remaining water off of it, and move it to their higher value crops.
Do they get rebates? You guys, the state or the water districts in your areas offer rebates for irrigation, like smart controllers and all the new things that they have on the market?
The district doesn't, although we have had an on-farm loan program in the past as a means to expedite on-farm efficiencies. We have worked with Congress in recent years to expand the ability of irrigation districts to be project applicants, and so to expand the applicability of the eligibility criteria. We've worked very hard to get additional federal funds put into the EQIP program and the AQIP program so that the conservation districts have more to work with. And so if you were to have driven through the Yakima Valley 20 years ago and then were to compare it today, you'll see a lot more high-efficiency center pivot irrigation than you did, a lot more drip irrigation, and a change in crops because definitely in the junior districts, you're going to see complementary mix of crops in order to make it work.
Okay, one quick last question for me. I know you mentioned storage. How's groundwater stored? Do you have much ground storage versus surface water? It's
evolving. It's been done for many, many years in a municipal context. My district's actually in the midst of a feasibility analysis to store large quantities underground, both in the spring and the fall, with the help of Larry's office. It's not a new idea. It's done in other places, and we've actually examined it here in the past, in decades past. And I would defer the rest to Larry.
Yeah, I think you've hit on another source of storage too, right? There's surface storage, which tends to be big, tends to be costly, and then you've got underground or groundwater storage. I was just at a meeting earlier today in the Columbia Basin, about 2 hours northeast of Yakima, and it was a consortium of cities that are typically have deep wells, and they're running out of water. And those are communities that are within a large agricultural area as well, part of the larger Columbia Basin project. And so I think, groundwater is a great idea. Aquifer storage and recovery is a term of art that you may have heard. But the really cool thing about the Rosa project that Scott mentioned is the scale. We're gonna start out small and pilot things and see how it goes, but it is scalable up to tens of thousands of acre feet worth of storage. So hopefully, we can get that pilot project started and see some positive results, not just for the irrigation districts, but also for the municipalities that are here in the basin.
Sounds interesting. You guys, go ahead, Trent.
So what about that Springwood Ranch site? Is that looking positive, or I know you've got that feasibility study kind of going on?
Yeah, it looks very positive.
That's exciting.
I think there's getting the property purchased. I mean, it's mid-system storage, which is important because then you can take water that was released from reservoirs in the winter for fish flows and potentially be able to capture it farther downstream and use it again. That's one thing we don't have in the basin. All the storage we have is up in the headwaters. And so, the geology looks good. The location looks good. So I'd say all signs are positive so far.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's off channel. So there aren't any fish habitat impacts. It's been reviewed by the Yakima Nation for cultural significance, and they fully embrace the site. So, yeah, all systems go on that. And the other thing is we've thought about that site really as sort of a poster child for the 7 elements of the integrated plan that Scott mentioned at the start of your show here. It really showcases a lot of the conservation, the habitat enhancement, the storage, the operational changes to existing infrastructure. So it hits many of the goals we have for improved water management here in the basin.
I got to tell you, this is pretty. My board's lighting up about all the people that were sending me notes to ask questions. I'm trying to stick to what we said we were going to talk about, and I will. But very interesting what you guys are doing, and the immense problems that you have to take care of. Where can they get more for the listeners out there in your area, or anybody else, maybe some other water districts listening in? How do they get in touch with you guys?
roza.org. And
Yeah,
one thing I would add.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yakima
One thing I would add.
IntegratedPlan.org.
We should have put you on.
I often
We
get
should have.
questions.
I was going to say we should have put all of you on video with us so we can see when everybody's talking. It's kind of hard when you do this, and you know. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I often get questions from people about, my gosh, what about all these data centers and all the water that they're going through? There are no data centers in the Yakima Basin. They're in the Columbia Basin. So we're not competing with them for water in the Yakima Basin.
Well, you're good to go. We appreciate that. Well, guys, really appreciate the story and the background to this. If I can call you in a month or two and follow up with progress and what's going on, that would be great. You've got a great thing that you guys are doing, and keep it up.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, for our listeners, thanks for sticking in with us. As we tell everybody at the end of the show, please keep our planet green, and you got to do that. If you like green, you got to have blue, so you got to use the water more efficiently. So we'll tune in to us next week, and you have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you.
NBC News on KCAA.